I'd like to welcome everybody to today's episode of Demystify Selling with Microsoft. And I'm very excited for today's guest. My guest today is a sought after motion designer, best known for transforming complex ideas into really simple but yet unforgettable visuals. And so when I heard this and I met Phil, our next guest, Phil Lashley, I was like, Phil, we got to talk because to me, this is such an important topic. The partners that I work with, all the time I see partners struggling with messaging and communicating what they do and how they help their audience. And this is what Phil does for a living. So, Phil, I don't want to steal any of your thunder. If you could take a minute, introduce yourself to our audience, tell us a little bit about your background, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely, Rob. Thank you for having me. My name is Phil Lashley. I'm from Barbados originally, living in the States and doing a digital nomad year for my wife. Essentially, I am connecting the dots for brands right now, for marketing teams, personal brands, anyone who has complex messages, the coaches, the consultants. If you're selling, if you're presenting on a stage, all of these buckets, I kind of find myself intersecting between thought leadership and creativity, just connecting the dots for them. And essentially, I'm helping them to demystify, if I can use that word,
Yeah.
what storytelling is and how it can be relevant for their business, for their bottom lines.
That's great. And Phil, like I said earlier, is that for me, when I heard that, I was like, oh my goodness, that is such a big challenge for so many partners. And as you know, I work in the Microsoft ecosystem. I work closely with partners, and the partner ecosystem is 400,000 partners strong. So
Oh,
there's
wow.
a lot of partners out there. And a lot of times I hear messaging that either sounds the same or is flat. And so to me, it really is a critical part of the selling motion, both for the individual sellers and the company as a whole, as a brand, is to have clear, concise messaging. And so maybe you can share with me in your experience why this is so important.
Yeah, especially in today's day and age, like you have to find ways to stand out. Um, I'm not sure if you've been in a situation where you've been in a classroom or in a session and somebody's talking and they look like if they're communicating well, but you're not even paying attention, you're not
Right.
connecting. Connection is the name of the game. Yes, is attention is the currency, but you're really wanting to connect with whoever you're talking to, and people only understand and remember what to connect with. So that's where I come in and I'm saying, hey, find ways to stand out, find ways to use story. I know it's a heavy word, but I break that down for
Mhm.
my clients and I help them to essentially become storytellers, whether on
Yeah.
a personal brand or they're within a team, a marketing team, for big, small company. It doesn't matter. The, in the room, it's them and the audience. So they
Yeah.
need to connect, and story is the vehicle.
I think you touched on something really important on the why there is that it isn't this big brand. When you're on a stage or you're
Mhm.
communicating, even one on one, that why is so important because you have to connect with that person. You really do. That story that you talk about is so
Yeah.
critical to building that connection and creating the rapport and the understanding. I mean, it's, in the world I play in, there are thousands of partners that do one specific thing or one sort of solution area, as Microsoft refers to.
Yeah.
But every one of those companies has something that's unique to them and special to them. And so it really is critical, I think, as you said, to be able to communicate that and connect on your superpower or your why
Yes.
it's so important.
Yes. 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 Clear and sticky.
Clear and sticky. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's I love that. That is, that kind of leads me into, what are the pieces of a story or a message that you think are critical? Like, how do you communicate, when you're first talking to a customer,
Mhm.
what it is that they need to be thinking about?
Yeah. So if I could peel back the curtain a little bit, there's this simple methodology that I use to simplify this whole thing because for me, even myself as an independent creative consultant, if you may, like I had to find ways to stand out And at the very core, I'm a motion graphics designer, you
Hmm.
know, and there are a lot of motion graphics designers out there, but I had to find a way to stand out and use story. So by reverse engineering what I had to go through for my own brand
Yeah.
to I use a framework, and essentially what I'm encouraging my audiences to do, my clients, is to ask these 5 questions for whatever situation they're in, whether it's a video or if they're in a room talking one-on-one or one-to-many. Um, what are the feelings that they want the audience to feel, right? It's a
Hmm.
frame method. The F is for feelings. R is the relatable concept. All right. Is there something easy, some visual metaphor that your audience already knows and you can piggyback on that? The A is for aesthetic. Like, what should this look like in case of a video or some kind of branding marketing campaign? The M is for message. What's the one message? What's the one message you want your audience to take away? And
Right.
E is the expression. Like, how else can this concept or this idea be expressed? And when my clients use this simple frame methodology, it's a workbook that I have available on my website for free, they begin to see their communication in a different light. And then they begin to see how are the ways they can use story. So I start there as
Mhm.
through the methodology, and then you go out to what the assets look like, what the deliverables look like. So for example, it may be like a like demystifying some mythbusters. They want
Yeah.
the clients to really be clear on what they're, where they fit into the ecosystem of their solution. So a customer journey map, for example, that's something that their clients can insert themselves into. That's just one tangible way. There's a whole laundry list of ways. The founder's story, a testimonial story from the clients. There's the core values. There's different processes that the company may use that they're just using in an Excel or PowerPoint list. You can pull these out, isolate them, use the frame methodology, and come up with videos or different types of assets that is out of the box, really.
That's great. And so what I'm hearing you say is that your methodology that you're using, this frame methodology, is really applicable to all kinds of different assets. And so
Exactly.
whether that be an asset that you're going to share with a customer, or you're going out and you're doing a presentation, or you're in a sales call, you
Yes.
can really start to think through. I love the fact that you're thinking about feelings. It's like you have the empathy of trying to step into that customer's shoes and lead them with a feeling versus just some information. And I think that to me that stands out so powerfully, is that a lot of times where we get caught in reading out speeds and feeds of
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, it's this, it's this, it's this, and switch this on, switch that off. When really it's about, how do you feel? How do I
It's about
feel when I
connecting.
finish this
Yeah,
call? Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. We are quick to list benefits or payoffs. I
yeah,
mean, people hate to be sold to. I mean,
right,
both you and I, we know that. Everybody knows that, really, but we still
yeah,
do it. So I think this is an era where whoever starts doing things differently, like having these sticky storytelling visuals or methods of communicating, they're
yeah,
going to shine. They're going to be seen as different. They're going to stand out, man.
yeah, yeah. That's amazing. So to kind of go through to the next one, in that relatable. So we had the feelings, and then getting to relatable now.
Hmm.
This to me, as I'm thinking through this for the partners that I work with, it's not only critical when you're reaching out to customers, but in the Microsoft ecosystem, we're also reaching out to Microsoft sellers.
Hmm.
And so we have this dual relationship. We have a relationship with our customers, and we have a relationship with Microsoft in the Microsoft field. And this
Right.
applies, we want to be relatable to the individuals inside of Microsoft as well as their customers. So
Right.
I mean, the more we unpack this framework,
Yes.
I love it. I love the sort of ability to really create a story, create a message that follows this. And maybe you can walk me through the aesthetic a little bit and kind of help me
Mhm.
understand that a little more.
Yeah, this is basically the visual branding.
Mhm.
So most companies already have this established. So this is in this scenario, this would be the most obvious one. If there's a market director, they understand the looks, the fonts, the colors of the brand, the company. You want to be intentional about those. So regardless of if it's a customer journey map or a video, an explainer video, a sizzle reel, a quick FAQ
Mhm.
video, whatever you want to be consistent with whatever
Yeah,
brand. Yeah, that's what aesthetics is about,
I see what you're saying.
basically.
So regardless of the medium or the asset that I'm creating, you want the consistency, the look and the feel to be similar so that as a customer, no matter where I engage with you and whatever
Yes.
story I engage with you, I have a feeling of, oh yeah, I know, I recognize that look, I recognize that feel.
Yes.
So, okay,
Exactly. And
great.
to add to that, though, Rob, it plays into the feelings again because, for example, if you're talking about like a cyber security firm, for example,
Hmm.
and there's certain words that come top of mind like trust, loyal, reliable, secure is the obvious one,
Yeah,
but these companies would have already vetted what fonts, what colors feel safe,
right.
and the spacing, the negative spacing that is in their designs. um, that's a feeling already, but
Yeah,
the aesthetic kind of rides on top of that and sits on top of that, so it's all cohesive, is all under the umbrella of the
right.
brand. Yeah.
Okay. Great, great. And then the message, I mean, that almost, it sounds like, oh, that's just easy, but I think that it's
Mm,
bringing together. And I think this is where some of the magic happens is that we really do need to start to think about how do we craft that message to deliver the feelings, the relatability, and, the aesthetics is probably I don't want to say the easier of the ones, but it's the ones that's more
the obvious. Yeah.
obvious. Yeah, thank you. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so, walk me through how you work with clients in terms of crafting the message that sets them in the best light, or shows off their what we refer to in the Microsoft ecosystem as your superpower.
Yeah.
What's the one thing that you could go toe to toe with anybody, and you will do a better job than any other partner on the planet.
Yeah. So for this one, surprising to me, most companies have their what they call a brand promise.
Hmm.
Most, not all, but most.
Yeah.
And even those companies who can easily, recite their promise, when it comes to a message is something more directive, instructive.
Mm.
So I like to partner with the marketing directors. This is their language. This is their lane. Even if they're not clear on what a singular message is, they have a bunch of messages. This is from my experience. There's so many things they want to say, and the tricky part is not just it's not identifying what they want to say. Like the challenge is identifying one message because they have so
Right.
many. If
Yeah,
that makes sense.
it does. It does.
And that message, not to be confused with a promise, that message can vary depending on what the asset is. So let's take the example of this cybersecurity firm again.
Hmm.
They may have a specific campaign for, I don't know, a season, Christmas or New Year's, and the language can be tailored to the message would be tailored to the specific campaign. It's
Yeah.
still under the big umbrella of the brand, but it's like a directive. Okay, right now for this, when you watch this video or when you see this piece of material, this asset, you need to do this
Yeah.
specific thing. That's how I like to think about it and explain it.
Yeah, and that's great. And it really resonates because, again, with the Microsoft partner ecosystem, there are some partners that are specialized in one area. So we refer to it as the solution designation in the ecosystem. But some
Mm,
partners have multiple solution designations. So,
yeah,
if I'm hearing you correctly, it's you really need to craft the message that aligns with what you're focused on in our case, a solution designation. So whether it's modern
right.
work or it's security or any of those solution designations, you really want to have a message crafted for that specific, what you called I like how you framed it. It's directive and instructive
Yes.
message. So I love that. And I mean, I guess I really underappreciate how much you need to put into this because, as you said, different assets require different messages, but you need
Hmm.
to be intentional in each of those assets. Hmm.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, let's move on to the next one, the E expression. Maybe you can kind of go a level deeper for me on that.
Right. So expression is the one that it really was not a part of it. It was added at the
Mhm.
end, pretty late. And this is the one I think is most can easily be forgotten because what it is you're asking how else can your campaign or your idea, your concept be expressed. So say you have a presentation and you went through your secret sauce, your methodology, right? The
Mhm.
way you do things, whether it's an acronym or diagram or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're thinking what this E does is ask you, okay, is this the only way that this can be expressed? Like in a digital format, maybe I have some tangible handouts. If it's an in-person meeting, something that the audience, the recipient can take away to remember the core, you know, the core message actually,
Right, right, right.
or the core relatable concept.
Yeah.
In case of many of my clients, I'm thinking of one client. She's in the health care space, and she's a speaker, author, course creator, and for her, her expression was fridge magnets. I mean, we in our brainstorming consulting session, she was like, "Okay, I want something different," but it was really, really easy because we are all so close most of the time.
Yeah.
Expression allows you to, how else? Zoom out a little bit, come up
Yeah.
from the forest, from the trees, and think, okay, how else can I give value to my clients or the recipient, the
Right.
audience, And for her, the fridge is the heart of the kitchen, is where the health decisions are made in the fridge. So it was kind of relevant, It wasn't like
Yeah.
just out there. And she had her customer journey map on the fridge. And for her, that worked. So
Yeah.
for your clients or, your audiences, it might be different, something more relevant.
Right. But I think what I'm taking away from this is that it's understand where you're going to go next with that customer and how you're going to
Yes.
help them retain that message. So, if I'm in a sales presentation, I go through my presentation, deliver my message, deliver those feelings and that relatability. At
Hmm.
the end of that, I want to find a way, maybe not fridge magnets, but a
Right.
way to follow up that's going to continue to deliver that same expression or use another modality or another tool to deliver that same expression and really continue that relationship, continue the feelings and the relatability that I
Yes.
achieved during that presentation. So I love that, Phil. That's great.
Yeah. Something I just thought of too, Rob, in the case of sales experts in the context of Microsoft, if an agent has like a great experience with one of their customers and that client is willing to share a little bit of the great experience with the agent
Yeah.
within this in the conversation with Microsoft, for example, and you can tell me if this is relevant or not, but to have a third party come into that meeting virtually and just express a few seconds of their experience, that in itself is a different way of expressing value.
Yeah.
It's a little out of the box, but
Yeah.
it firmly supports the intentions and the goals of the agent in the eyes of Microsoft.
Yeah, yeah. I think as sellers, we're all looking for ways to differentiate ourselves and
Hmm.
to find new ways to cut through the noise.
Yes.
So I love it. I mean, I think that's one of the gifts you bring to the table is that you have a new and interesting perspective on a lot of things that we may take for granted. So that's part of why I wanted to connect with you today was to start to brainstorm it and hear how you would approach this. I mean, the Microsoft ecosystem isn't something you would normally work in, but
Right.
what you do as a day to day is help people deliver messages that are memorable, that create that emotional
Yes.
response. And so, I think that's a super powerful uh, way to go about it, and really a super powerful thing for us as Microsoft partners to be thinking about. So great. And maybe
Yeah.
you could maybe you talked about the one example of your consultant that you worked with, but maybe you could walk us through an example of maybe a company that you've worked with, whether it's
Mhm.
in the technology space or whatever. Just kind of how you approach it. Do you use the same methodology when you're working with a personal brand versus a
Mhm.
company? I'd just love to hear your thoughts on that.
Oh, that's a good one. So there's a experience design, a customer experience company that I recently worked with, and I had to adjust my approach a little bit because they're already, of course, they're telling their stories already. This
Hmm.
is not something new for them, but I came up with this idea of having a singular, I call it a strategic narrative.
Hmm.
It's one narrative that usually is not defined in any company. It's something we create together where internally teams can be on board. Um, Everything points towards this strategic narrative, and
Okay.
out of that, you get stories coming out of it. So, for example, their slogan, I can't remember the exact words right now, but it kind of alluded to the fact that they're unfolding the process, making life
Okay.
easy for their clients. So we took that word unfold the process. Their logo looks like an origami, form.
Yeah.
So we kind of piggybacked on that and came with this succinct narrative that they identify themselves as. It was true for them and easy to remember. Nothing external. It wasn't for marketing. It was just for them. Once
Yeah.
we had that clear, everything we created kind of aligned to that. And
Right.
it made it easy for everyone inside the company, inside of the marketing team in particular, to be on
Yeah.
the same page. It wasn't, oh, this rogue idea of a story. It all, everything was cohesive. So I would say for brands, medium to bigger brands, that is the approach. Having a strategic narrative to kind of keep everything together would be the first step. That's what I encourage.
No, I love that. I love that because that's a big part of what I talk about is having that message. And I love how you frame it as the strategic narrative. It really is, because a lot of what you do following that is in support or in service of that strategic
Yes,
narrative. So I love that.
yes, yes, yeah.
Great. Well, Phil, any parting thoughts or any, if someone is going to take one thing away from today, what would that one thing you
Ooh,
want to remember be?
ooh, put me on the spot. I love this. I would say maybe 3 to 5 years ago, the goal was to just get attention,
Mhm.
to stand out, get attention. That's all we were hearing. And it is a strong currency. Some might argue it's the only currency of today's marketing world.
Yeah.
But I would say I've had enough calls with clients this year in particular where attention is not enough because most people are overwhelmed, markets are saturated, social media is like crazy. I would
Hmm.
say instead of aiming for attention, aim to be remembered. It's a slight
Hmm.
difference in thinking, but if you can find a way to have someone remember you,
Yeah.
I think that's a North Star right there.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that is so true because I mean, it's people are all out there competing for attention, crazy, photos and all this, but it
Yeah.
really is what we want is to be remembered. That's the thing
Yes.
we want, as in selfishly in the Microsoft ecosystem, as partners, we want to be remembered. We want to be the
Yeah.
partner that's remembered by our customers. We want to be the
Yes.
partner that's remembered by Microsoft. So I love that, Phil. That is a great way to wrap up. I appreciate your time, Phil. And if anybody wants
Oh,
to get a
thank you.
hold of you, what's the best way?
PhilLashley.com. You can head
Okay.
over to the contact page to shoot me a inquiry, or you can look at some of my work. But that's the easiest way. PhilLashley.com, LinkedIn or Instagram. I'm there too.
Excellent. Well, Phil, thank you again. I appreciate everything you shared with us today, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much.